Hello.
Hello, my name is Dean Contover, and this is the Current Buzz. Today we have Lori Trahan. She's a congresswoman of the 3rd Congressional District in Massachusetts, and it's a pleasure to have her on. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
It's about time we got you back. You know, I remember.
I know it was a busy year last year.
Yeah, and this year too is going to be a busy year. 2020. I like 2020, by the way. Let's talk. I know I don't have much time, so let's talk about things that are going on in Washington, D.C.
Sure.
The main thing that's going on in Washington, D.C. right now is impeachment. Tell me what you know. Is it going to be a fair trial in the Senate? And how do you vote for impeachment? Do you get any feedback, any phone calls from your office? I don't know if we have your number on the screen, but do you get any
you bet.
phone calls? Yeah.
So
pro and con.
Yeah, absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely, and I'll speak to all of that. I mean, so first and foremost, I mean, I didn't run for office to go down to Washington and impeach the president. I mean, it's not something that you actually want to do, right? I mean, I ran on a platform of improving the quality of life for people in Chelmsford and Lowell and surrounding cities and towns, and so. It was tough, and it was a solemn occasion, of course, all throughout the summer. But, at the end of the day, I took an oath of office to uphold the Constitution. I do not believe that this president or a future president should place him or herself above the law and abuse the power of that office, which is what happened when the president, held up military aid to an ally in exchange for, dirt on a political opponent. And so, I think all eyes are today on the Senate. Certainly the Senate leader, Mitch McConnell, has put out his rules package on how the impeachment proceedings are going to go. And they don't look good in terms of breaking from what we've done in the past with the Clinton trial.
I remember the Watergate trial, so that was a long time ago. I was in college at the time, and I studied immensely in college, so we know it's a long process.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, a trial should have witnesses, and a trial should have documents.
I agree.
Those were things that were withheld from the House proceedings because the president used his executive privilege to withhold evidence, and so we've got to keep the pressure on and hope that the Senate does the right thing in fairness and in terms of upholding their oath of office and upholding our Constitution.
There's one thing I want to tell you. You're not going to remember this, but I remember this during the Watergate situation. There will not be an aircraft carrier named after Trump. There will not be an office building named after Trump because he was impeached. You don't hear about that in the press, but that's ingrained in American history.
Yes.
There will not be an aircraft carrier. I know.
And one thing I will say about that, Dean, because I know, like sometimes when you look back at 2019, folks think that all we did in Washington was impeachment. If there's one message I want folks to know back here at home is that we passed over 300 bills last year, and out of the House, many of them bipartisan. They're all waiting at the door of Mitch McConnell to have an open debate on issues, whether it's background checks, paycheck fairness, minimum wage, violence against women authorization. I mean, lowering prescription drug prices, which is something I campaigned on.
Oh boy.
All those bills we were able to pass out of the House while we were doing our duty in terms of holding the administration accountable. And this hasn't just been about impeachment. It's been about getting to work and making sure Washington works for people.
I want to tell you something in regards to the VA buys medication from the pharmacies at a low price. Look into that because they buy it at a decent price. But I want to jump around because we don't have very much time. In regards to there's a couple of things. The spinners in regards to you're getting Republicans and Democrats involved in regards to sports. Explain what's happening with the spinners and minor leagues.
Yeah, so back in October.
Minor league baseball, I'm sorry, for the audience.
Thank you. So back in October, the MLB sort of let leak out of their negotiations a proposal to wipe out 42 minor league teams across the country, basically 4 leagues. One of them is the New York Penn League, of which the Lowell Spinners is a team, and it didn't take long for me to build a coalition of Republican Congress members and Democrats, because, you know, if you come from,
everyone loves baseball.
Well, one, yes, it's America's favorite pastime, but two, you know, people in Greater Lowell, that might be their only access to a professional game, right? There are so many people who can't afford a night out or a ticket to Fenway Park, and so I think about what Lowell and the surrounding communities, how they've benefited culturally, psychologically, certainly economically from having the Spinners there, and how hard we worked to get the Spinners to Lowell, so that, you know, more people across this region could enjoy a night of baseball. So, you know, I think this is one instance where the MLB is sort of taking an across-the-board cut look at revamping their feeder system, but it's going to be devastating to communities like Lowell. And I think about families in Chelmsford. I mean, I've been to so many Spinners games. My little sister was the canaligator, for crying out loud.
Is that right? Wow. Wow.
Yeah, and you know,
my daughter worked for the Spinners.
Absolutely. I mean, for, you know, almost 25 years, that team has been, it's just been such a huge part. And I would argue it's as much a part of this region as the national park system, the Merrimack River, the university. So yeah, we're going to put a lot of pressure. We have a task force. We have over 100 people, Republicans and Democrats, which I have to tell you, you know, as we approach the end of last year, sometimes our politics can be super divisive, and this was an opportunity for us to work together. And I worked with David McKinley, a Republican from West Virginia, and so many others to build a task force, and also a resolution that we'll be dropping soon.
The New York Penn League has been around for a long time. I think they were started up in 1935, and that's early for a minor league, and I hope you can keep that New York Penn League going. Yeah. But I'd like to ask you about other things, too.
Yes, please.
Jack Kerouac stamped that a lot of people have been trying to get in this area for a long time. It'll be 100 years since he was born in 2022.
Wow.
And I was wondering if there's a possibility that you could get a Dear Colleague letter address and go around and have people in Congress sign off on that.
Well, so first of all, I have to thank you.
For what?
Well, because you've been at this for a long time.
Well.
You know, I've seen letters that date all the way back to 1993 from my former boss, Congressman Meehan, Senator Songus, Senator Ted Kennedy. I think using the 100th anniversary is a perfect opportunity and great timing for us to breathe some life into this effort. There's no question that Jack Kerouac was just an outstanding literary figure in our history.
And again, it would help the area, the Merrimack Valley, in regards to people recognizing and coming to Lowell or Greater Lowell.
Yeah. You bet. So we'll look into that. I'll definitely do a Dear Colleague.
There's a bill that I'd like you to also look into. It's called the
HR
853.
Yep.
That means House.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a House resolution.
House resolution bill.
Yeah.
It's 85. If you're a veteran, it has to do. It says to expand the retroactive eligibility for the Army Combat Action Badge to include members of the Army who participated in combat during which they personally engaged or were personally engaged by the enemy of any time on or before December 7th, 1941. In other words, World War II, it would be retroactive to World War II for anybody in the Army. And it would also be retroactive for Korean War and the Vietnam War, and because it just was established, I think, for Afghanistan and Iraq.
Yeah.
So
we need retroactivity to make sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I just want you to look at it.
I'm happy to look at it.
And if you want a bill to be moved in a resolution, call your congressperson's office. And I'll give you the office number because she's waiting for phone calls. I mean, not really. I'm only kidding. 978-4 978-459-0101.
Yes.
And again, that's 978-459-0101. Put it in your phone. If anything comes up, you want them to call you.
Absolutely.
Especially if they're going to Washington, D.C., right?
Yeah.
Because they have to have the real, what do they call it, the real ID to get in office buildings. I didn't realize if you go to the White House, you need a real ID now.
By October 2020.
Yeah, in Massachusetts, yeah.
But, certainly, I'm always happily surprised at the things that we can help constituents with.
Right.
I mean, there's such a range of issues, whether it's Social Security benefits. I mean, you talk about combat veterans. We've helped so many families replace medals that have been lost. Get medals where they didn't know they were entitled to them. And so, if you have a question and it touches upon like a
passport
an
problem.
Agency passport, whatever it might be, call our office. And as you said, it's 978-459-0101. That number hasn't changed in decades.
Who remember it by heart.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's just, it's worth calling and just asking the question, can you help? Because more often than not, we can. And even when people come down to Washington and they want to get a tour of the Capitol, I mean, we can help with those things.
Right, the White House, the FBI too now. They have tours
I mean, we
again.
certainly, we have information on all those private tours, but then there are some of those public tours. We can help with flags flown over the Capitol, things like that. We're here to serve.
I have 3 minutes. I'm getting the sign. The new Green Deal. Explain it to me. I know what the New Deal is under Roosevelt. What's the new Green Deal? And you only have 3 minutes. So, I mean, explain it to me so I can understand it and I can tell other people what it is.
Yeah. So basically, the Green New Deal is modeled after the New Deal.
Okay.
It's a non-binding resolution.
Okay.
So, it's, but what it did do last year when it came out was it basically steered the conversation around how are we going to invest in the jobs of the future, in our environment? How are we going to transition off of fossil fuels and get to a place where we're investing in renewable energy? Oftentimes what happens in that debate is people feel, especially folks who are working in the fossil fuel, that there is no place for them in the future, in our future economy. And the Green New Deal set out to basically say that we are going to take folks with us, right? So not only as we're transitioning our energy sources from fossil fuels and traditional sources to renewables, to wind, to solar, to fusion, whatever it may be, we're also going to make sure that we're taking care of our working class and middle class families and retraining them and getting them transitioned as well. And so it has done an unbelievable job of getting the country focused on how important that transition is, that we have that we treat the climate crisis as the existential crisis that it is.
Right.
And so I am hopeful
as we see in Australia.
Absolutely. I mean, look, we're spending $100 billion a year on these natural disasters, whether they're wildfires in the western part of our country or flooding in the Midwest. I mean, it's costing us an enormous amount of money to not deal with the climate crisis. And I think one of the votes I was proud to take last year was keeping legislation to keep us in the Paris Climate Accord. But we have to do so much more in this area down the road.
Right. Are we going to have you come back before the election, I hope?
I would love that, yes.
Give us a little more time. And,
you bet. I would love to do that. Last year I was in Washington a lot. We had a very ambitious
legislation. 1 year this month.
Yes, since I took my oath. Yes. But, this year I've, taken a look at the calendar, and we actually get to be home in our districts more than we were last year.
So good.
I would love to come back.
So now we were in the 116th Congress, second session.
Yes.
Very good. All right. Yeah, thank you very much for coming on. I know you have other things to do, but I hope to see you